staffs. And the ones they let go have prospered elsewhere.
One win, and he goes full-blown with the face mask. He didn't
Look,
hear me.
1 year he had 2 or 3 no-hitters in 1 year, and pretty much unhittable that 1 year. Yeah, they hadn't had anything like that since Denny McLean and Mickey Lolich, the 1968 World Series champs. Mickey Lolich won 3 games in that World Series. 24 games in the season, only to be exceeded by Denny McLean's 31. Last person to win over 30 in the majors.
Well, I had a meeting this morning. Everybody said to talk for like 20 minutes about passed out. Wasn't getting the oxygen.
Telephone check. Dana, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Sarah Bonsack there?
Yes, I am.
Welcome. Chad, are you there?
Yes, I am.
And Stacy?
Good evening, Mayor.
Great. We're all here on board. Regular meeting of Clear Lake City Council of Monday, December 7th, 2020 shall come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Mike, that we approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. To the consent agenda, you have a copy of the minutes of November 16th and the special meeting November 30th, 2020. We also need approval of the bills and claims, of which you have a copy, following license, which is a liquor license, Class C liquor license, LC commercial with outdoor service and Sunday sales. That's the other place, and that's a renewal. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Mark, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Now is the time and place for anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on any item that is not on the agenda. Please approach the podium, state your name first and last, and give your address so the clerk can properly enter it in the minutes. This is not a discussion time nor a question and answer time, and you have 3 to 5 minutes. None appearing, we'll move on to unfinished business. Number 5 on the agenda, 5A, Sunset School Urban Revitalization Area. And this is for the third and final reading of ordinance number 857. That ordinance is an ordinance designated an area of Clear Lake, Iowa as the Sunset School Urban Revitalization Area. I'll entertain a motion, please.
So, second.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Bennett, that we approve ordinance number 857 on the third and final reading. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mark?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
And Gary?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. And ordinance number 857 is approved on the third reading and is duly adopted. 6 on the agenda, new business. 6A, general obligation financing, property acquisition review. Mr. Flory, welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, start out with the sheets in your packet. The green sheet is a copy of the notice that was published in the Clear Lake Mirror Reporter for this proposal, and the orange sheets are the resolution determining proceed with the issuance of general obligation corporate purpose bonds for this purpose. Back at your meeting on November 16th, you had set the date for the public hearing on this proposal. Of course, for tonight, 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. As I mentioned, the notice of public hearing was published in the newspaper. That was done on November 18th. This is in regards to a proposal to issue not to exceed $600,000 in general obligation bonds for the purposes of land acquisition for a future park expansion project and as well as a future library expansion project. Park expansion project is, of course, to acquire the property that's currently utilized by Cerro Gordo County up on South 15th Street by their county secondary roads department, and that would be utilized for purposes of a future park expansion project and the Everybody Plays Playground project. The relocation of Woodford Wheeler Lumberyard from downtown Clear Lake to 7th Avenue North has also presented the city with the opportunity to acquire that downtown property for purposes of the future library expansion project. So that is also included. So I have not received any written correspondence regarding the matter prior to the public hearing, but I don't know if anyone has any questions. I'd be happy to answer those.
It's not to exceed 600,000, correct?
Yep.
Ken?
Mhm.
For the two project, park expansion, library expansion. Anyone else have any questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Now is the time and place for the public hearing with regard to the general obligation financing property acquisition. That property acquisition is, as Scott just explained, the park expansion project and the library expansion project. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address that particular issue, please approach the podium, state your name first and last so that the clerk can properly enter the minutes. None appearing, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bennett, seconded by Mark, that we close the public hearing with regard to the general obligation financing property acquisition. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. And now, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2069, which is a resolution determining to proceed with the issuance of general obligation corporate purpose bonds. Motion, please.
So offered.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Gary, that we approve Resolution 2069. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2069 is duly adopted. Under 6B, Courtway Park Street Lighting Enhancement Project, project update, review of pay estimate number 1. Mr. Petersburg, Binstra and Kim. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'll start with a project update. Jim Hunt Electric started work on the Courtway Park street lighting improvements on November 2nd. Since then, he has completed the installation of all the conduit wiring and light bases. So everything that needs to be buried has been completed before the frost sets in. There were a few issues, primarily with the concrete rubble debris out there. We were able to work through those. He had to bring in some different equipment for a couple of the stretches, and we had to change some of the conduit and wire routing, but all in all, it went pretty well. The 9 new light fixtures, the fixtures themselves have been delivered, but he's waiting on delivery of the pole and the arm. So I talked to the manufacturer today. They indicated a ship date of December 21st, but he was also looking to see if he could get that moved up a little bit as well. Pay estimate 1 in your packets is for work completed to date on the project. Net amount due to Jim Hunt Electric after subtracting the 5% retainage is $29,735.93. Questions on that?
Council, any questions for Jason on the Courtway Park Street lighting? Thank you, Jason. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to approve pay estimate number 1, and that's once again with regard to the Courtway Park Street Lighting Enhancement Project to Jim Hunt Electric of Clear Lake in the amount of $29,735.93.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Mike, that we approve pay estimate number 1. Is there a discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can I interrupt and back up just a second?
Sure.
I noticed the orange page, and I was
foolish enough to think I might have a chance to ask something on that, different than the green page, but it didn't work out that way. So anyway, all I want to know is, now that that has passed on the GO bond issuance, how, timeline-wise, how will we proceed with that?
Okay, real good question. I should have probably elaborated on that. So now that we've satisfied the legal obligation to conduct the public hearing, because if you'll recall, this was subject to a reverse referendum opportunity, so we now foreclose that opportunity. So I've been in contact with our financial consultant, who's helped us with the last bond issue on the $700,000. So we're positioning things for probably the first meeting in January to take bids. We'll probably get the bids before then, but act on the bids for not only this issue, but I've also spoke with him about, since we're going to have to issue the $1.2 million on the Marriott Hotel and Conference Center project, that we would combine both the $600,000 from this issue and the $1.2 million on that issue, issue them at the same time and try to capitalize on some economies of scale for issuance costs, legal costs, and those kinds of things, as well as hopefully capitalize on some interest by local banks and getting both of those by leveraging them together. So they're actually going to be two separate issues, so it won't be a $1.8 million issue. It'll be a $600,000 issue and a $1.2 million issue. The $1.2 million issue is not going to meet the requirements in the law for bank-qualified tax-exempt financing, so it might be just a little bit higher rate on that one because of that. But the $600,000, since it's for general corporate purpose, or excuse me, essential corporate purpose, it does meet those requirements, so we'll be able to get both bank-qualified and tax-exempt financing on that particular note. So hopefully we'll have this going yet this year, and then coming back in January and issue the proposal out and take bids on it.
Thanks for clarifying that. And once again, I would like to compliment you on winning the ugly Christmas sweater contest at the meeting.
This is the victory sweater.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ugly sweater is a victory sweater, and a victory mask is a big win. Still
Thank
talking playoffs.
Thank you.
Well, it is 2020.
Annual City Audit Report 2020 fiscal year intro, Scott.
To elaborate on that, I was at the coffee pot this morning. Creighton walks in, he says, "Oh boy, that's the first thing I got to see in the morning. That's not good." He's a Bear fan. So thank you, Mayor, Council. In your packet at the very end, you've got some materials that Sarah Bonsack, City's auditor, is going to present this evening and review with you. Prior to that, you also received a copy of the letter regarding the audit, as well as a copy of the fiscal year 20 audit report itself. As you know, of course, we're required to prepare an audit under Section 1119 of the Code of Iowa, and that has been completed for our fiscal year 20, which of course ends June 30th of 2020. State law, of course, requires that that be completed by a certified public accounting firm. City's been utilizing the firm Bonsack and Frommelt since 2013 for these professional auditing services, and back in November of 2017, we had approved a 2-year extension with Bonsack and Frommelt for the audit services. That covered the fiscal years 18 and 19 for us. And then in calendar year 2019, if you recall, we negotiated a second renewal opportunity with the firm, and that covers audits all the way through fiscal year 2024. And the cost of the audit services outlined in the agreement established a base fee for $28,000 for fiscal year 20. So once the city's auditor presents these audit findings and reviews the recommendations and conclusions with you, then we will have somebody make a motion to accept the audit, and then we file a copy with the state auditor's office. I don't have anything further on that unless anyone has any questions.
Council, any questions of Scott? Thank you, Scott. All right, review of 2020 fiscal year audit report. Sarah Bonsack of Bonsack and Frommelt LP, and she is with us telephonically tonight. Welcome, Sarah. You're on.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight to talk about your June 30th, 2020 audited financial report. I was going to speak mainly from the presentation that was delivered in your packet, but I'm happy to address any questions you may have on the financial report or the letter as well. So with that, if you could turn to the first page of the presentation, it has the required communications. And this is, if you will, this is our report card on the audit. As I've mentioned in the past, when we come to do an audit of the City of Clear Lake, we actually do two different audits. One is an audit of your financial statements. The city was issued an unmodified opinion on your financial statement audit, which is the highest form of opinion that you can receive. So you should be commended for that. The second type of audit that we do is a government auditing standards audit. And the purpose of that audit is twofold. One is to test your internal controls, to document them, and also to test them to make sure that they're functioning as designed. And the second piece of that audit is to look at your compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements. For all of those audits, we had no findings reported. And again, that's a very clean report. In the past, several years ago, you had findings, and those were corrected by your management team. And again, that's something we look for during the audit process. The city did not adopt any new standards this year. The GASB delayed implementation of all new standards due to COVID. Significant estimates were audited and concurred with, and there was only one uncorrected misstatement that was made, and that was the Library Foundation marking their investments to fair value, which was determined to not be material. So all in all, a really good report for the city. If you turn to the next page, it's the revenues of the cities, and this is looking at them from a very consolidated basis. Your total revenue for 2020 was $14.6 million, compared to 2019, which was $12.9 million, and that represents about a $1.7 million increase. As you look across the bars, you can see that the large increase actually was in property tax. The city's property tax rate remained the same at 9.7. Your non-TIF taxable assessment increased about $4.7 million, which was about a 1% increase, but your TIF taxable assessment increased $42 million. And I wanted to remind you that in the back of the bound document, there's 10-year statistical history, and on pages 79 through 85 gives you different information regarding the property taxes and the assessed values of the city, and just an important place for you to know that information is readily available to you there. The other increase was in charges for services. This is mainly due to your special assessment on the 32nd Street. And then the only other item to point out is in other taxes. This increase is primarily in your local option sales tax, which, as you know, is very dependent on the results of the local economy. But there was no rate changes involved with that. That was revenue. If you could turn to the next page, this shows the expenditures of the city for the year. In total, your expenditures for 2020 was $13.4 million, compared to 2019, which was $12.2 million. So that's about a $1.2 million increase. The community and economic development, the primary reasons for your increase there is due to your economic development incentives in the current year. And really the rest of them, you had a general wage increase, but that's really coupled with increases in the city's proportionate liability for your pension and your increases in other post-employment benefit liabilities that account for the majority of the remaining increases. And then the last page is just kind of a snapshot in time of your general fund. And it looks only at your unassigned balance of your general fund. This year, that was about $7.9 million. But if I look at both 2019 and 2020, if all of your revenue sources were to dry up, what this graph tells you is you have about 310 days of operating expenditures within your fund balance, which is a very healthy general fund balance. And it's remained, as I said, it's been steady within the last several years. And with that, I'm happy to address any questions you might have.
Council, any questions for Sarah?
Yeah, I
Mike?
stumbled on one here. On page 80, where they break down the assessed value and estimated actual value of taxable property, a whole new column pops up in 2015 for multi-residential property. Now, obviously, somehow they must have separated that out of residential property and created a whole new, so I would guess previous to that, that was just part of residential property?
That's exactly right, Mike. I'll just jump in on that one. Sarah, you can correct me if I'm off on that. But
Okay.
The legislature then changed how multifamily property was taxed and assessed for taxation purposes. So in that year is the first year that it has started. So there's a plan to equalize it with the residential property. So that was the first year it was really segregated out, classified different from commercial property. So for years, it used to be taxed at a commercial property tax rate, and then the state legislature changed it, and they have, like I say, a 10-year plan to put it on an even keel with residential property for taxation purposes.
So if you were comparing those columns, it actually came out of commercial property.
Yep.
And created its own, as opposed to impacting the residential property.
That would be correct.
Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to understand that.
Yep.
And that makes a lot of sense, so thank you for
Yep,
clarifying.
we didn't care for that because it went from, I think it was taxed at one point 100%, then 90%, and now it's on the path to be equalized down to about 56%. So there, for a lot of communities that have significant multifamily property in their community, so communities like Ames, Iowa City, these kinds of communities, that was a pretty significant hit for those communities. We don't have a lot of multifamily properties in the community, so it wasn't quite as big a hit to us. But yeah, basically that carved it out of the commercial classification, created its own unique, now separate classification, and the intent is to equalize it with residential.
Well, and as I'm looking at this, and from what I've heard over the years, our big thing is residential property with our unique puddle out in the middle of the end of Main Street there, so.
Yeah, we're still, property tax pie, we're still about 75% residential.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions of Scott or Sarah? Sarah, for one, I, and I'm sure the rest of us probably feel pretty much the same. Thank you that you have taken these 100 pages of the audit that you have given us and summarized it in these 3 pages that you and we have looked at tonight. These graphs are much more understandable than us going through and crunching all those numbers. So we appreciate that very, very much. And I'd like to give thanks to Scott and Linda Nelson and Creighton as well for these number of years, certainly that I've been here, and the audits always seem to be very, very positive. So thank you for this. Sarah, do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't. Again, I'd like to thank your team that we work with when we're there. We really kind of put them through their rigors, but they're always very responsive and very helpful while we're there, and we really appreciate that.
Great. Well, from the council, we trust that you and members of your firm certainly have a Merry Christmas and a healthy New Year, and be safe. Thanks, Sarah.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Therefore, I entertain a motion to accept the 2020 fiscal year audit report.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bennett, seconded by Gary, that we accept the 2020 fiscal year annual audit report. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Chief, report. Council, any questions for Chief? We haven't had any snow, so we haven't had any parking complaints at this point. Council, any other comments or questions for Chief? Thank you. Okay, under Public Works report, Jeremy. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. South 15th Street, where the old tin shed was, the developers began pouring footings or forming them and getting those ready today. The sanitary sewer connections are completed with the main. They've run those back into the property. Same with the storm sewer connections. They have connected to our storm sewer system. Everything is moving along there. As far as East Main, Wix is nearly wrapped up with everything they plan to complete this year. They've completed driveway pavings and backfill, and most of the backfilling behind the curbs. Alliance been on site today relocating a couple gas services. I think Wednesday the rest of the backfilling and yard grading should be completed. And then Wix will also be on site Wednesday finishing some temporary sidewalks and some cleanup in that area. And then hopefully, if that is all completed, they plan on removing the road closed barricades Thursday morning. I think that they believe they're going to be leaving up the sidewalk closed barricades throughout the winter because they are not completed. So just as a precaution. Linehan was on site today pulling wires, and that they plan on installing street lights yet this week. And then as soon as Alliant can get the power to the new control cabinet, the lights will be operational. It might be a couple weeks before Alliant's able to get to that. It is on their schedule, and they're hoping to have it done prior to Christmas. And that should pretty much complete everything that they have on the docket for this year. Other than that, it's all I have for updates.
Another nasty word, but do you have the plows ready to roll? Or?
We do. We had them ready a few weeks ago when we got that little scare. So hopefully get a few more weeks at least without any. But yeah, we're good to go. Hopefully an uneventful snow season. We'll see.
The fact that we have Main Street opened up will be a positive, or?
Yeah. It will. We actually hauled in some just clean sand, so that we won't be sanding or salting or brining Main Street that was paved this year. And then if we have any icy conditions on Main, we do have a pile of fresh, just straight concrete sand that we'll end up loading up to use there. Other than that, operations as normal. So. Yep.
Okay. Council, any other questions for Jeremy?
Just a comment. I've had the pleasure to ride my bicycle up and down that stretch several times in the last couple of weeks, and I have to report that nothing fell off the bicycle this time with the improved pavement. I mean, that you don't realize how tough a shape that was in till you do something like that, and it is a wonderful improvement. You know, well, a few of us in the room can go back to the tracks down the middle of that, and then that seemed like a miracle when they were gone, and we were able to put some pavement over that. But this is a very nice road, so I, for one, am very excited about it and anxious to see it move forward with Phase 3 next year. So thank you to all involved.
Any other questions for Jeremy, Council? Thanks, Jeremy, appreciate that. Under Mayor's report, Stacy, a call upon you first, Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, everyone. First things first, let's talk about Santa. I'm sure that's what's on everybody's mind. So you've probably noticed the Santa house is out. We do not have Santa scheduled to be in there. Just the size of the house itself does not really lend itself to a safe interaction there. So we've thought of a few other ideas to get the kiddos connected with Santa. The high school did fabricate and paint a Letters to Santa box that sits on the steps now. So if your kids drop a letter off anytime now until the 15th, they will get a reply from Santa. We also have Santa scheduled on a trolley tour around town on December 19th. So that'll begin at 1 o'clock on December 19th. And then being printed in the paper on Wednesday is a map of all of the lights that have, or all of the houses that have been entered into the Light Up Clear Lake light competition. So CLTEL sponsored some awards for a light competition in town. So if you're interested, if your house is decorated, give us a shout first thing tomorrow morning to get on the list. Otherwise, that will be going to the paper, and they'll be printed in the paper on Wednesday. In regard to chamber event happenings, everything remains virtual at this point. We do have a virtual quarterly coffee scheduled for Friday, December 18th. At 7:30. So hope you can join us for that. If you shoot me an email at stacy@clearlakeiowa.com, I can get you the Zoom login information. And then just briefly, another initiative that we've been working on with the Vision North Iowa team. We are still meeting and discussing COVID-19 response and recovery and starting to focus again back on our strategic plan. And one of the major initiatives that I've been working on is in regard to workforce recruitment. So we had a focus group over lunch today with a couple of newbies to the area, including Creighton. So thank you, Creighton, for contributing to that. But we're trying to understand what draws people to North Iowa, what types of amenities should we be focusing on as we promote the region, and what's missing as people are researching the region and trying to determine if this is, you know, a place that they would want to move or see their family living. So trying to get some information gathered around that so we can continue to build out the This is North Iowa site to assist our employers with recruiting workforce. So that's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Council, any questions for Stacy? I'd like to compliment you, Stacy, and your staff down there and the chamber board. You know, not just Christmas, but this entire 2020 as far as activities, at least from the middle of March on. You know, we have all had to adjust, and you folks more so than anyone probably in this town. We all know that Clear Lake is noted for its citizen and tourist and visitor activities, and all of those certainly have either been adjusted or curtailed, including this Christmas. But yet, you have provided us with some alternatives that certainly people are thankful for. We will struggle, yes, but we will make through this, and let's really look for a great 2021 that we're about to head into. So anyway, thanks. It's been a tough year, but appreciate what the chamber does for this community, as well as our visitors and tourists. Thanks, Stace.
Thanks for the kind words.
Chad?
Thanks, Mayor, Council. Appreciate you having me on.
North Iowa Corridor.
Major dittos, Mayor, on to the chamber. They've done a phenomenal job, and appreciate the partnership and all that Stacy brings to the table. Just a few quick things. We always track the unemployment rates as a good indicator of how we're doing here as an economy. And the latest numbers, they haven't gotten November out yet, but as of October, we're all the way down to 2.9%. So I think just a really good indicator that things are going pretty well here. For some context, as a state, we're at 3.6%, so we're beating that. And the month previous, we were at 4.4%, so really a big drop in unemployment. And year over year, last year at the same time, we're at 2.2% unemployment. So we're not all the way back, but really, really in a good trend line there. We'll see how it looks when the November numbers come out. Obviously, we've seen some of the increased numbers of COVID and everything else. But in general, we're seeing some pretty positive indicators on that front. Now, I will say project activity with the increased numbers recently has slowed down a little bit. Some of the projects we've been working on are taking a little bit of a step back and a wait-and-see approach right now, which I think is understandable. And that's pretty common in this November through December time period anyway, with the holidays kind of coming in and everyone puts a lot of stuff on hold. So we're kind of used to that. But Stacy gave a really good update on Vision North Iowa. The other thing I'd add to that real quick, I know Scott and the mayor had taken part in our digital economy assessment focus group here a couple weeks back, and we're continuing to work through that process. Really appreciate, I think we had over 40 people take part in that first call, including members of Kingland and other tech companies, really just trying to gauge where we stand as a technology community, and are we prepared for the future and what is coming for our businesses and to help launch tech companies and what is the next Kingland and things like that. So really excited with how that's gone and the information we're learning. Kind of the next step, what we're trying to determine is, do we move forward in really trying to take a bigger and more intentional step. There's some really good federal programs and grants available, and looking at continuing that relationship to see what would be possible in that. So I know that's a big part of the discussion moving forward. We also are looking at, last year we did the State of North Iowa event in January. We're going to be talking more with the team on how we want to handle that. We won't be ready for something in January, but looking at, do we do something maybe February, March, trying to build up to that, though, with kind of evaluating where we are. We're about halfway through the implementation part of the plan. It's a good time to do a little bit of a check and see, how are we doing? What have we done? What do we need to change in light of COVID and current things on the ground? So we'll be doing all that in the next couple of months and trying to determine, again, what does that event, or do we do an event? Is it in light of everything, or do we wait until things calm down a little bit? We'll be talking through that. And finally, here on Friday, we have our quarterly investor forum from 8 to 9. That will be virtual. You should have received invites to that. If not, please let me know. I'll be sure to get that to you. But looking forward to another good discussion.
Council, any questions? For Chad? Thanks, Chad. Appreciate that.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
We've discussed a lot of the things that I was going to say, which is probably not too bad. I saw some young folks on the edge of the lake down there. I think we all have to be aware that ice may be 2 inches, maybe up to 4 inches. I don't think it's much more. So people have thrown lots of huge rocks out there that don't seem to have gone through. But please, this is a time where you really have to be careful of what looks like safe ice is not always safe, especially down there around the outlet. And please be careful. That's all I have, Mr. Flory.
Just going to mention that tomorrow we're going to have a Zoom call with Mindy from RDG, Mindy Alvarez, who helped us quite a bit with some of the graphics down at the City Beach project as well as the banner project on North Shore, and we're going to work through some concept plans and talk about screening of the utility boxes there down at City Beach. You know, Alliant, when they bury the overhead electric now, there's always a big, large transformer box that kind of goes along with that, and so that's right there at the walkway as you kind of come from North Shore Drive entering City Beach. So I've seen other communities do that. I've kind of shared that with you. I think Mason City's done a nice job with that, where they shield those transformer boxes. I think they've utilized some Frank Lloyd Wright architecture themes in doing that over there. So we're kind of following the same thing here to get some proposals and ideas put together on not only that one, but also there's one in City Park as you're heading in from North Shore Drive, heading that direction. It's kind of right there. It's been there for a while since we redid that North Shore Drive project and the underground, the utilities there. So looking at that again tomorrow, as well as talking about the light poles on Main Avenue. Reminds me, of course, that we did include banner arms, so it might be time to start talking with RDG again about another Mike Callahan banner project. He loves those banners. About what we can do for East Main. Maybe we can do something a little different over there, but those are super popular, well received by the community, so we'd like to maybe think about what we can do there. Of course, significant round for the parade, so maybe find a few options that we can use there, but I think the ones that RDG helped us with on North Shore really have been so well received and durable, and they look as good today as when we put them up a couple of years ago now. So very, very happy with those. I don't know if we mentioned it at the last meeting or not, Mayor, but John Marino, our longtime building official, recently passed away. He was a great, great guy and worked here for a very long time, and had he set the bar really high for the building department, and just did. I always remember when McKesson came here, John was sort of at the precipice of retirement at that time. We talked him into staying on. It was important at that time with his experience to kind of help with the contractors that were involved in that, continue on through that process. We didn't want to change building officials right as that project was getting going. So John made a lot of significant contributions to the community, and again, he'll be missed, and he was a good friend. So condolences to him and his family there. So, and that's all I have.
Thanks. Any questions for Scott? There will only be one John Marino, with the sayings and the quips and the, shall we give it a real proper term, John's metaphors were unique indeed, and miss that guy. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Any other business, council? Meeting adjourned.